I'm Dutch, and let's react to the Americans. Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Johan, and I'm a typical Dutchman. And if you're planning to come over to Europe or the Netherlands for your holidays, or maybe living here permanently, or you're wondering why is everything so expensive in the United States in comparison with Europe, then you are at the right place, because in this channel I look at and react to life and living in America versus life and living in Europe and the cost of. And for today, we're gonna take a look in some different category for once, because this is rather concerning to me from the outside looking into America, because legal, we already seen it with the food, etc. But Trump deployed military to my city, and I wonder why. I know there was something. There was a real something going on in Los Angeles with all the ICE raids. So there was the National Guard implemented and against the wishes of the governor. But what is now happening in DC, I do not know. So I'm gonna take a look at this video with legal, so he will explain the legal issues that surrounding this part of, I don't know, militarization of DC happening now. President Trump promised new help for DC to help with homelessness and crime. Okay, let's take a look at this. I'm wondering what there is going on.
I'm announcing a historic action to rescue our nation's capital from crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor.
Families come here every summer. Our museums are free. We have the National Zoo. We have some of the best career law enforcement and prosecutors in the country who are ready to take this on.
I'm here at the National Zoo, and it is pandemonium, by which I mean there are pandas here.
Hello, this is also legal, but not in his formal suit. Pandas here. What is this? Okay, I'm not gonna react right now. I'm just gonna take a look what is going on here.
Tensions are high as tourists get off the metro. They're sweaty, they're hot, they're not comfortable. It could erupt at any time. When a very small line developed at the Starbucks across the street, I was worried that all hell was going to break loose. There are roving gangs of youths that you can tell by the similarly colored t-shirts that they're all wearing. Luckily, the security measures in place seem to be holding a careful peace.
Truly terrifying stuff. Let me get this straight. Donald Trump, the man...
Truly terrifying stuff. Okay, I know that, and that's why he was hinting to, if I understand his humor correct, there is, because of the tourism, people are afraid now because of the ICE raids and the border customs actions that we saw against Europeans. Europeans are afraid to go to America, and also from Canada and Mexico. So there's no tourism coming to America in total and to DC. So I hoping that he is hinting to this. It's very busy at the zoo, nothing to see, and it's very busy at Starbucks, nothing to see.
Man who was convicted of 34 felonies, who invoked the Insurrection Act and violently cleared Lafayette Square in 2020, who wouldn't call the National Guard to quell the Capitol riot on January 6th, who then pardoned those same rioters, who was friends with the world's most infamous sex trafficker. That guy has now declared Washington, D.C. a Mad Max hellscape.
Our capital city has been open.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, he's all right. It's okay. Oh my goodness. Yeah, he is a convict. He has the January 6th riots are now not bad anymore. He quitted those who did it, and now, yeah, okay. Okay, something went wrong with OBS. So we were at 1 minute 17, wondering what this is leading to. So let's keep on.
Capital city has been overtaken by violent gangs and bloodthirsty criminals, roving mobs of wild youth, drugged out
Roving mobs of wild youth.
maniacs and homeless people.
Now, because of the current mass lawlessness, which is completely made up, President Trump is assuming control of the Metropolitan Police Department and deploying 800 National Guard troops to combat crime in the city. And who will be leading the charge? Well, none other than former Fox News host Jeanine Pirro, who bluntly said,
"We need to go after the DC Council and their absurd laws."
and Attorney General Pam Bondi, who declared that tourists were unsafe while visiting the zoo. And Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, fresh off of installing bathroom monitors, who promised the military would flow
It will continuously monitor bathrooms to comply with anti-trans order. What is this?
into the capital and other cities as needed.
You will see them flowing into the streets of Washington in the coming week. They will be strong. They will be tough.
Trump's allegations that the city has been overrun by bloodthirsty criminals, roving mobs of wild youth, and drugged-out maniacs are not true. But even if it was, does the president have authority to take over Washington, D.C.? Well, Trump started laying the groundwork for the takeover in early August when a high-profile member of DOJ, Edward Corsetine, was the victim of a carjacking by 2 Maryland teenagers. Elon Musk immediately tweeted that Corsetine had stopped, quote, a dozen men from assaulting a woman, and that he stepped in to save her and then was, quote, beaten to the point of concussion. Now, there doesn't seem to be any truth to the story of Big Balls saving a woman from assault by a dozen men, but Musk ended his tweet by calling on Trump to federalize DC. Truly, we live in the dumbest of dumb times. But Trump also posted
I can't know how to say that. I agree. What are we doing?
about the incident on Truth Social. He shared a photograph of a shirtless Corsetine with what appeared to be blood splattered on his face, body, and pants. The photo was apparently taken by Marco Alez, another DOJ staffer who featured prominently in the mostly illegal DOJ takeover. Trump posted that, quote, the law in DC must be changed to prosecute these minors as adults and lock them up for a long time starting at age 14. If DC doesn't get its act together and quickly, we'll have no choice but to take federal control of the city and run the city how it should be run and put criminals on notice that they're not going to get away with it anymore.
Okay, it wasn't September? No, it was September. February, you said?
Now, you should know, violent offenses in
Yeah,
DC
August,
are down
yeah.
29% compared to the numbers of 2024. And generally speaking, these numbers are part of historically low crime statistics as well. However, there have been some high-profile incidents that garnered national attention. In May, 2 Israeli embassy staffers were killed in an anti-Semitic attack at the Capitol Jewish Museum. In June, a 21-year-old Republican intern was killed by stray bullets.
Police have grainy video of shooting that killed congressional intern. An interner? Okay. 20-year-old rising senior at the University of Massachusetts at Amherst worked for Representative Ron Estes of Kansas.
Bullets during an altercation between 2 rival groups, and some aspects of DC's criminal laws are controversial, especially how the justice system treats minors. In the district, youths aged 16 and older are automatically tried as adults for violent felonies such as murder or sexual abuse. Those under 15 are generally handled in juvenile court unless the judge decides to waive jurisdiction to transfer the case to adult court. But as he likes to do, President Trump shared his opinion on the matter, stating that juveniles 14 and older should be tried as adults, quote, they're not afraid of law enforcement because they know nothing ever happens to them, but it's going to happen now. But rather than deal with statistics, Trump wanted to deal with vibes and feelings, so he cited the Corsetine incident to declare that DC is facing an unprecedented crime wave, which it is not. So over the weekend, he transferred about 100 FBI agents to patrol the streets of DC, even though FBI agents are not trained as beat cops. The DEA, ICE, and the Marshals Service also contributing officers. He put Attorney General Pam Bondi in control of the Metropolitan Police Department with a mandate to clear homeless encampments and remove graffiti. And on top of that, he's calling up the DC National Guard. So it turns out he does know how to call up the National Guard.
Yeah. Official General 6 Select Committee. Yeah, he did not do that. But that was in, 2024, wasn't it? So it was at the time of Biden.
Trump's orders state that the moves are necessary in order to stem the dramatic rise of crime, which, as I explained, does not really exist. And in fact, in January, the Justice Department announced that DC's crime rate had fallen to its lowest point in 30 years. And that announcement is still up on the DOJ's website. But the question of when to try minors as adults is the subject of a decades-long debate in criminal justice circles, and it's fine for the president to have an opinion on criminal justice issues. But the appropriate age to try children as adults is a state and local issue everywhere except for DC, where the city is allowed to make its own laws unless Congress doesn't like them. That's right, over 700,000 people live in Washington, DC, a population...
Okay. So, it's a state on its own, if I'm correct?
larger than Wyoming, Vermont, and Alaska. But unlike those states, DC has no governor, no senators, and no voting representatives in Congress. That's because the framers wanted the federal government to control its own seat of power, so no state could meddle in national affairs. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 of the Constitution gives Congress the exclusive legislative authority over the Capitol. That arrangement loosened in 1973 when Congress passed the DC Home Rule Act, allowing residents to elect their own mayor and city council and manage local affairs. Under Home Rule, the mayor runs the city day to day, but Congress can still override DC's laws or revoke Home Rule entirely. And contrary to what the framers wanted...
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Congress controls DC, not entire Washington, but DC inside Washington.
This system of government allows the states, through their elected congressional representatives, to meddle in DC's local affairs. Now, this hybrid system of federal and local control isn't a great deal for the people of DC, because it means that Congress has the right to overturn laws passed by the district, including its budget. For example, in March of 2025, Congress passed a continuing resolution that cut $1 billion from DC's budget, even though, unlike the federal government, DC does not have a budget deficit. 75% of the city's funding comes from local, not federal sources, but the city was still forced to cut some services as a result of congressional meddling. And that's not the only time that Congress has intervened to stop DC voters from self-governance. DC residents voted to legalize recreational cannabis, but since Congress will not allow the district to spend funds on legalization, the city has a convoluted gifting system alongside a retail ban. Republicans have also threatened to limit or even ban abortion. Again, this would be against the will of the voters. And President Trump has now vowed to deploy the National Guard to take over the police department and overturn local laws he doesn't like. So let's consider whether he has the authority to do any of that, starting with controlling the DC National Guard.
Whoa, wait. Is this the ancient discussion, no taxation without representation? So if we are taxed by our government, we want to have a say in our government? Except for DC, is that this what it's all about? And not this, but what he just said. That yeah, DC residents want to have a vote, so they have their own mayor, but they cannot put up of cannot form their own laws and regulations because they could be overruled by Congress at any time. Okay.
But whether they have the authority or not, now might be a good time to remove your online personal data. Because if you didn't know, data brokers vacuum up your personal data from all corners of the internet and sell it to anyone who wants to buy it.
Okay.
But you can fight back and take control of your personal data by signing up for today's sponsor, Incogni. Incogni removes your personal data from online data brokers by searching the internet, reaching out directly on your behalf, and forcing them to take your personal info down. If these data brokers resist, Incogni will take care of that too, because Incogni fights back. These data brokers are the reason why in the United States you can search your name and find a bunch of websites that will give anyone your home address, phone number, and extensive history. It's shocking just how easy it is to find all this information. It also might be why you're getting so many spam calls lately or even had your identity stolen. Now, I've been using Incogni for years, and in that time you can see I've been on hundreds of lists, some of which had a high sensitivity score, meaning the broker had tons of data on me. Luckily, Incogni has completed hundreds of takedowns for me over the years, and I could never do this myself, so thank you to Incogni for saving me weeks worth of work and adding me to over 40 suppression lists. And Incogni will continue to conduct ongoing removals because even if the broker removes your data once, they can collect it and publish it again. So if online privacy is important to you, give Incogni a try. If you click on the link that's on screen or down below, you can try Incogni risk-free for 30 days with a 60% off discount and get a full refund if you're not into it. But if you do decide to keep it, you'll still get the exclusive 60% off discount so long as you use my link or the code LegalEagle, all one word, at checkout. So sign up for Incogni or I'll see you in court. As pointed out, there are 50...
Okay, back to the video. Why DC mayor should have authority over DC National Guard.
4 National Guard organizations in the United States, 1 for each state, as well as Puerto Rico, Guam, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and the District of Columbia. Of these, only the D.C. National Guard is never under local control. When the president was named as commander-in-chief of the D.C. National Guard, the district had no local government at all, and therefore no local official to take command of a militia. Now, times have changed, but the law has not. As a result, the president serves as his commander-in-chief of the D.C. Guard at all times. He has to exercise that authority through the Department of Defense, but that doesn't offer the population much protection. At a minimum, Secretary Hegseth should define the terms of the deployment, including the rules surrounding the use of force, which would normally be governed in part by state law. And in a perfect world, the Secretary of Defense would push back against the president using military against a civilian population, but we probably can't count on Secretary Hegseth to do any of that for reasons that we outlined in the video about Signalgate. So we're left with an outdated
About Signalgate, oh yeah.
structure that is vulnerable to abuse. And there are several problems with the president.
Hegseth was also a anchorman for Fox News or something, I believe. And now he is head of DOD. No experience, no training, no nothing.
President's control of the DC Guard. First, it creates a, quote, loophole in the Posse Comitatus Act, the law that stops the president from using federal military forces to conduct a civilian police force. The purpose of the act is to prevent a tyrannical president from seizing control of a state or city without statutory authority. Unfortunately, the Justice Department has clung to the legal fiction that the Guard can operate as a domestic police force rather than a militia. As the Brennan Center explained, quote, that means the president can use the DC Guard as a domestic police force at any time without invoking the Insurrection Act, which allows the president to use military force to quell violent uprisings or enforce civil rights laws, or any other statutory exception to the Posse Comitatus Act.
Oh. This means that the president can use the DC Guard as domestic police force at any time without invoking the Insurrection Act, which allows the president to use military force to quell violent uprisings or enforce civil rights law. Yeah. Our president and civil rights. Not your president and civil rights. But still not the reason why he has done this. Yeah, I hear because of the violent crimes and homelessness and violent teenagers and thefts and
or enforce civil rights laws or any other statutory exception to the Posse Comitatus Act. Now, during President Trump's first term, he took advantage of the loophole to activate the Guard to stop local protests against police brutality over the mayor's strong objection. And as we know, officers then used tear gas to clear the way for Trump's Bible-toting photo op at St. John's Church. Now, the second problem with this loophole was exposed during the January 6th riots. Under DC Code Section 49-103, quote, when there is in the District of Columbia a tumult, riot, mob, or body of men acting together by force with attempt to commit a felony or to offer violence to persons or property, or by force or violence to break and resist the laws, or when such tumult, riot, or mob is threatened, it shall be lawful for the mayor of the District of Columbia to call on the commander-in-chief to aid them in suppressing such violence and enforcing the laws. Now this
loophole again?
loophole is meant to give the president authority to act quickly in times of crisis, such as when thousands of people converged on the U.S. Capitol with the aim of disrupting the certification of Biden's victory on January 6, 2021.
That's from 2021.
Just kidding. No, I guess it doesn't work then. Because as we know, on January 6th, President Trump was holed up in the White House watching the events unfold on television, while the members of his staff, members of Congress, and Fox News personalities begged him to stop the riots. Mayor Muriel Bowser called on Trump to activate the D.C. Guard alongside the Maryland and Virginia National Guards. However, President Trump ignored that request. She then turned to the D.C. Guard's commanding general for help, though he had to follow the chain of command by requesting authorization from the Secretary of the Army. These communications took 3 hours. Meanwhile, rioters rampaged through the halls of Congress, while the D.C. Guard personnel sat waiting on buses.
Yeah, I've seen this. This was... Okay, some of the worst things that I saw in and around D.C.
Now, this incident demonstrates how the mayor of D.C. doesn't have the same power to activate the National Guard in the same way that the state governors do, to provide assistance in the event of natural disaster, a riot, or pandemic. Instead, the city's mayors have to stay in the president's good graces and then hope he doesn't engage in political gamesmanship if they want to get any help during a violent event. So yes, the president can use the D.C. National Guard in ways that he would not be able to use other military personnel, to conduct routine law enforcement tasks within Washington, D.C. itself. Now, does this mean that National Guard troops can patrol the streets just like city police officers? Well, presumably. Can they be tasked with clearing homeless encampments? Even though they're not trained for it, probably. And because D.C. is not a state, there's nothing the residents can do about it. Now,
It's not a state. The District of Columbia. Yeah. Okay.
Keep in mind that on the same day that Trump federalized D.C., a trial started on whether deployment of National Guard to Los Angeles violated federal law. But that only went to trial because the governor filed a lawsuit challenging the move on the grounds that the Trump administration violated the 10th Amendment. And the mayor cannot make that same claim here. Now, in addition to the National Guard, Trump has asserted control over the local Metropolitan Police Department. Now, does the president have power to assume control over a city's police force? Well, not unless that city is Washington, D.C. Section 1.
Not unless it's Washington, D.C. Oh.
1-207.40 of the D.C. Code says, quote, whenever the President of the United States determines that special conditions of an emergency nature exist which require the use of the Metropolitan Police Force for federal purposes, he may direct the mayor to provide him, and the mayor shall provide such services of the Metropolitan Police Force as the President may deem necessary and appropriate. But under
Yeah. And an emergency nature, which emergency? Well,
the code, the deployment can only last for 48 hours, quote, unless the president has, prior to the expiration of such period, notified the chairman and the ranking minority members of the committees on the District of Columbia, of the Senate, and of the House of Representatives in writing as to such reason for such direction and the period of time during which the need for such services is likely to continue. Now, Trump has yet to provide a formal written justification outside of his Truth Social posts, but when he sends a letter to Congress or puts out an executive order, I expect it will follow the pattern of Trump's other emergency declarations, claiming the city is under invasion by illegal immigrants, gangs, drug cartels, and other undesirables. And the only way to fix these problems is, of course, to give the president unlimited power over the military and police.
yeah, that's what we saw in his campaign all the time, and what he's now acting on, and that's what the ICE raids are doing. Yeah, he's becoming more and more likely to be and to enforce bit by bit. And we only, half the year that he's now in power. It's going to be bit by bit. Democracy is broken down. And it looks like you guys going to get a new dictator. More Dick than Tater.
And while that sounds pretty bleak, the code does provide two key limitations on a president's authority. First, federal control of the police is supposed to be temporary for, quote, 30 days following the date on which such services are first made available, or the enactment into law of a joint resolution by the Congress providing for such termination, whichever first occurs.
Yeah, by Congress, but the Republicans are the majority in Congress. So if the president wants this passes by the Congress, it will pass by in the Congress.
Second, the forces can only be used for, quote, federal purposes. Now, I'd like to tell you that this is a narrow tool for the rare situations like protecting the U.S. Capitol from attack, not an invitation for a president to play mayor. But the parameters of the code haven't truly been tested in court. And since there aren't any judicial decisions clarifying the boundaries of the president's power, the statute is up for interpretation. Still, 30 days means what it says, so that is somewhat of a limitation. Unless, of course, on the 31st day, Trump declares a different emergency. But of course, he'd never do that, right? And the next question is whether
No. Oh, our beautiful blonde, brainless Pam.
Attorney General Pam Bondi can run the Metropolitan Police Department. And the answer is no, she can't run the police department on a permanent basis. Now, as we talked about, the Home Rule Act allows the federal government some authority to intervene temporarily in D.C.'s policing emergencies. So it's probably likely that Trump has the power to delegate authority to Pam Bondi to manage some of MPD's operations for the duration of the emergency. But a lot hinges on what the federal emergency actually is. The code doesn't allow Bondi to dissolve MPD's operational command or permanently assume authority over the MPD and its priorities.
Luckily, she cannot do. Pam Bondi fired him for prosecuting January 6 rioters. He would do it again. It's about justice. Okay.
That said, I kind of doubt we're going to make it through this without Bondi firing some of the local police officers and daring them to file lawsuits. Now, Mayor Bowser and the city council technically retain authority over MPD's activities that are outside of the emergency scope, but that's somewhat hard to interpret in this scenario because Trump defines the current emergency very broadly, encompassing routine law enforcement matters from graffiti to homeless encampments to the criminal sentences of teen carjackers. And as we've seen, the US has many statutes that trigger sweeping presidential powers in the event of an emergency. And Trump has repeatedly stretched the term emergency far beyond what is customary. During this second term, Trump, quote, made spurious or thinly documented claims of national emergencies to justify harsh illegal immigrant measures, sweeping tariffs and emergency deregulation. Trump
That's what we saw in LA.
invoked the Alien Enemies Act, claiming that the United States was either under foreign invasion or at war, and used that assertion to justify deportations without due process.
Yeah. Under invasion. Invasion for what? From whom? From Canada? Or from Mexico? No one can touch them.
However, multiple courts have ruled that the country is neither formally at war nor facing imminent threat of invasion, though all the same, he ignored the Posse Comitatus Act and deployed the National Guard and the Marines to Los Angeles. Though all these cases have yet to wind their way entirely through the appeals process. So finally, what about Trump?
Yeah, okay. It takes time. It's a slow, justice is slow. So we know it's not good. They know it's not good. But all this, law going through all the red tape and making jurisprudence and making rulings about this takes time, months, maybe years.
Trump's other aim, sending juvenile offenders to adult prisons. Well, DC's 13-member city council has the authority to draft legislation, including criminal codes. But here's the big catch. Every bill passed by the council must be sent to Congress for a review period. For criminal laws, it's usually 30 legislative days, and during that time, Congress can pass a joint resolution of disapproval to block it, and the president can sign that into law. This happened in 2023 when Joe Biden was president. The DC Council spent over a decade modernizing its criminal code, but Congress stepped in and overturned it, citing concerns about lowered maximum penalties for certain crimes, including carjacking. And President Biden signed the disapproval into law. See, guys, when it comes to denying DC residents basic rights to self-govern, Congress and the president can be bipartisan too. Now, after the
Yeah, and I believe this is already going on for decades, this discussion of self-govern.
the veto, DC Attorney General Brian Schwab said, quote, to overturn our local democratically enacted laws, the product of 10 plus years of collaboration between law enforcement, judges, and policy experts, without any independent analysis, review, or alternate proposal, is not only undemocratic, it's also careless. But here's the thing, even if every voter in the district supports a reform, Congress and the president can still veto it. So in that sense, the city council is more like an advisory board. So the legislation it passes is in effect until Congress says it isn't. So although the DC Attorney General has the discretion to ask the court to try juvenile defendants as adults, even if they're ages 15 and under, that probably would not satisfy the Trump administration. They would prefer to take away prosecutorial and judicial discretion entirely. And although Trump and Congress could repeal that provision of the law, they've made no move to go through the legislative process. But for the next 30 days, if you're walking down the street in DC, you might want to watch out for federal troops, FBI agents, and commandeered MPD officers. And if they arrest you, you're going to want a good lawyer.
Not such a... yeah, his firm, yeah.
Luckily, I know a guy. Now, after I started this channel, every week I'd get hundreds of comments and emails from viewers who are dealing with legal problems. And they'd ask, can you help me find a lawyer? How do I know if this attorney is any good? And there's a massive gap in our justice system. It's that people don't know how to find the right lawyer for their specific situation. They're scared, they're overwhelmed, and they end up doing nothing or hiring the first attorney who calls them back. And that really bothered me. So I started to wonder, what if there was a different way? What if we could build a law firm that actually lived up to the values that I talk about on this channel? Transparency, accessibility, and putting clients first instead of chasing billable hours. A firm where you don't need to pay anything up front and your lawyers only get paid if you do, to maximize your opportunity for justice. So a few years ago, I decided to fix that problem. I decided to start my own personal injury law firm. And honestly, it wasn't an easy choice. But I realized I was in this unique position. I had this platform, this community, and the experience. Not to get rich, trust me, there are easier ways to make money than starting a law practice. But we did it because access to justice shouldn't be a luxury. Because finding the right legal representation shouldn't feel like playing Russian roulette with your future. And when when you work with my firm, you're not just getting a lawyer. You're getting a team that understands that behind every case is a real person with real stakes. If we can't represent you or you're in a state where we don't practice, we'll take the time to try to match you with an attorney in my personal network of lawyers. A national network of some of the best lawyers in the country who actually specialize in what you're going through, located right where you are, not just whoever happens to be available. So if you're dealing with a personal injury, a car crash, a data breach, sexual harassment, a social security or workers' comp issue, give us a call at the number on screen or click on the link below. Now, I can't represent everyone that watches this channel. I wish I could, but what I can do is make sure that when you need
Yeah, he has 3.7 million subscribers.
legal help, you have somewhere to turn to that you can trust. So whether it's me handling your case or the incredible attorneys we partnered with, you'll get the same principles of honesty and education that we bring to every video. And if you're dealing with a legal issue and you're not sure where to start, check out the link in the description. Let's have a conversation about how we can help you find not just a lawyer, but the right lawyer for your situation. Because at the end of the day, that's what this is all about, making sure that when life gets complicated, you don't have to face it alone. Which is why when you need a lawyer, you don't just need a legal team, you need the Eagle team.
Wil je nog meer genieten van de show?
Yeah. Okay. Trump deployed the military in my city. Oh, wait. Wow. As a weak excuse to do this, because only the people who are actually living in DC or around DC or have more information about this know if this is really getting out of hand in DC. But according to the start of the video of Legal, while he was walking around in in DC, and I saw the cops or FBI, whatever it may be, walking with 6 of them slowly across a park with nothing to do. So I wonder, what is behind this all? What wants the president do based on this? I see it as the next step to getting more and more power and breaking down more and more of the democracy that is in the United States. And it's all against the will of people, because the tariffs, and we all know, we've seen a lot of videos on my channel, all these are higher prices, so people cannot survive. They don't have enough income, but the rent goes up, the grocery prices go up, so the inflation is very high, and it's brewing. It's hope that this will be soon either exploding or something happens in this way that it will be going back to a more reasonable environment for everyone in the United States. I don't know how and I don't know when, but I surely do hope it for a lot of people, and of course, like I say often, for the next generation, because this situation is getting out of hand each and every day that I look at this. Oh boy. And I will not talk about Putin and Trump and Ukraine. Oh boy. Well, I hoped you found this video informative. I don't know if you liked the video, but if you found it informative, then press the like button. And if you want to see more of my videos, then this is a good point to start. And it would mean a lot to me if you press the subscribe button, so we can make the YouTube algorithm say we like this man and we like this channel. That's good for the channel. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.